9 o'clock, and I am on time with history and politics. Please make sure you join the channel, Dr. Darnell Bolton, PhD. On Monday through Thursdays at 9 p.m., we go live with history and politics. In history and politics, we uh, focus on historical events and how they apply to politics today. Particularly what we have been covering for the last 2 months has been Donald Trump's new policy developing with El Salvador in sending criminals, or that's a funny word, um, imprisoned people to El Salvadorian prisons. And the water is getting muddy, the political waters are getting muddied because two things are happening at the same time. These people want to fill these mega prisons, that's the name being used, mega prisons, so badly. So apparently they've built prisons too big, and that means someone has built them. And if it's a mega prison, that alludes to a size, either in physical size or corporate size, which means for it to function, they have to fill it, which is the problem the United States had during the war on drugs. Private prisons, they built all of these prisons and then they needed criminals to go in there. So the incentive to criminalize activity elevated. So immigrants are being sent because they're the easiest to be sent. But in as early as January and February, Trump said that he is open and supportive to the idea of American citizens being sent to El Salvador. And obviously, the United States Constitution comes in, and what's muddying the waters, especially at one of the universities I work at, where I'm speaking to my classes about it, they began to try to convolute the immigrant deportations with the convict leasing of American citizens, to the point people have very short memories or selective memories as to where they're saying, well, they're making the argument, well, these are uh, cartel members. Now, what proof do you have that these are cartel members? Because when they were locking up black people during the war on drugs, everybody was a drug dealer and everybody was a gang member, which we've received about 2 decades of apologies from politicians that all got rich from it. The Clintons, Joe Biden, the Bushes, Obama, all of these people that, oh, are bad. But when we were arresting all of these people disproportionately in the black community, all these people were drug users and drug pushers and drug dealers, even though they had the amount of drugs on them that was equivalent to personal use, and obviously not leading a drug ring. That was the mass of the people, and were nonviolent crimes at that, which is statistically not arguable concerning the war on drugs. So again, we've made this movement in February when Donald Trump said about shipping out Americans, it was the most violent, the worst kind of people. That's specifically what we're talking about. In a month, that changed to, well, not just them, repeat offenders. And then now, just as a week ago, not just them, the people who are protesting and vandalizing Tesla. who happens to be the owner, happens to be part of the Trump administration. So obviously, we cannot convolute the two because immigrants have no coverage under the United States Constitution if they are not legally here. So when we're talking about the United States Constitution, we're not talking about the immigrants. So we have to separate those two. But what was as important is when I was speaking to my class, a question came up about the 10th Amendment. Because what I asked was, we were trying to identify rights that are specifically retained by the people. And I'm very proud of my class because they actually brought up a specificity between the Eighth and Ninth Amendment, I believe. Yeah, Eighth and Ninth Amendment. Okay. No, actually, it's the Ninth and 10th Amendment. The Eighth Amendment is excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel or unusual punishment inflicted on an American citizen. Now, the Eighth Amendment applies in this deportation of American citizens because does excessive bail, now we're talking about the spirit of the law, does excessive bail or excessive fine fall under the spirit of excessive penalty? It is not excessive to go to prison under the process of jurisprudence. It is not excessive to go to prison far from the state in which you committed a crime. It is excessive, at the very least unusual, for you to go to prison in a country and culture that you don't know. So, are we applying the Eighth Amendment too broadly with that form of logic? Let's think about that, but put a pin in that because this is what the students brought up. The question I asked was, if laws are not specifically reserved by the federal government or specifically reserved by the state, who retains that right? If a right is not articulated to be under the jurisdiction of the federal government or under the jurisdiction of the state, who reserves that right? And that was the question I asked. And my students answered, either the state or the people. Now let's read what the Ninth Amendment is. The enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. No, they quoted the 10th Amendment. The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, federal, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states respectively or to the people. If we go back to the ninth, the enumeration of the Constitution, in the Constitution, of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The ones retained by the people are the ones that are not articulated by the state or the federal government. Because if we look at 10, it said the powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by the states, meaning it's going to be articulated in the state constitution that the federal government can't and the state can, or it's in the constitution saying this is exclusively to the federal government. If it's in neither of those two places, they argued they are reserved to the states respectively or the people. What I'm saying is, because it says nor prohibited by it to the states. So it's saying if it's in only if it's in the state constitution, that's why it's saying are reserved to the states respectively. Because it says nor prohibited by the state constitution. If it's not mentioned in either, the enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights, which ones, shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. The ones retained by the people are the ones that are not articulated in a state constitution or a federal constitution. So, what are these rights? If we're looking at this situation of current convict leasing, there is no amendment and there is no place in the Constitution that addresses citizenship status being changed by way of imprisonment. So if it is not articulated in the Constitution, it's not articulated in the state constitution, it is retained by the people. So I retain jurisdiction over my citizenship because there is no higher authority over that in this particular situation, which being that of incarceration. So I am still an American citizen. The federal government cannot take my citizenship just because of incarceration. The state government cannot take my citizenship just because I am incarcerated. Thereby, your moving me out of the country of my citizenship is indeed to disparage the rights retained by the people. So we're looking at the 8th, 9th, 10th, 14th Amendment that we're having a problem with. 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and of the states wherein they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within the jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. We still have to find out as a people who's invested in these empty prisons. If I have a prison and it's not enough people in it, and I'm trying to fill these prisons with anybody, what's going on? Who's paid the money? Whose business is at risk? And why is it an international movement to fill the prisons? If I built prisons in a country you would think I would have done my due diligence to ensure my business model could be sustained, as opposed to shopping for prisoners hemispherically. I don't understand why no one is asking that question. All they're saying are mega prisons. So if we know which prisons these are, let's call the name of the prison. Because it's a corporation that runs it. Who's on the board of these corporations? What is the mother corporation that these smaller corporations are a part of? These are the questions that we need to be entertained.